everybody, and welcome back to a brand new Doctor Who video where today I'm discussing the prospects, the possibilities of how the Doctor and Yaz's relationship is going to play out over the final two episodes of the Jodie Whittaker era. So yes, obviously it's been a few weeks since Eve of the Daleks now. I think it's only actually been about 3, but I don't know, is it just me that feels like it was months ago now? I don't know why we kind of have moved on from it so quickly. Like, it wasn't like, as I said at the time, it was a pretty good episode of Doctor Who, but I just feel like we've so quickly kind of, well, not forgotten about it, but just kind of moved on from it. But I still wanted to make this video because I felt like I didn't really discuss it that much at the time, and I think it's just quite interesting to kind of theorise on how this relationship may play out. Of course, you know, we've got the Sea Devils in the hopefully Easter special to look forward to, and all the excitement around that. We've got Jodie Whittaker's last episode, which is probably going to feature the Master and potentially Unit as well, are rumoured to be involved with that. So there's sort of exciting things from both of these episodes to come. Obviously the Centenary special, so there's, you know, another aspect to be excited for that one. But there's sort of, you know, the rather important thing that was established in the most recent episode of Eve of the Daleks of Yaz's feelings for the Doctor being very much realised on screen. You know, we've spent a long time, the fans have wanted it to happen, and it's been a long time kind of been discussed, been hinted at. You certainly, I guess the initial signs were kind of there in Series 11, but then through Series 12 it became more and more apparent that, you know, that Yaz had a very, very strong affinity towards the Doctor when, you know, she didn't want to let her leave in the Timeless Children, and was, you know, Yaz knew she was being left behind, and then that being explored in Revolution of the Daleks, where there was a 10-month period where she didn't see the Doctor and the toll that took on her. Then we saw at the very end of Revolution of the Daleks when Ryan and Graham were deciding to leave, Yaz was very quickly like, no, I'm staying, I'm going to stay, I can't leave, and that's just sort of grown over time. Then obviously Yaz was separated for like 3 years from the Doctor in the middle of Doctor Who Flux, in Survivors of the Flux. And so it's just gradually built and built and built, and you kind of wondered whether Chris Chibnall was ever going to go kind of as far as explicitly sort of stating it and exploring it on screen. And obviously, with only a couple of episodes to go, he decided to go down that route. Now, of course, it begs the question, and it's what many fans have been discussing, is, you know, where's this going to go? We had established in Eve of the Daleks that Yaz is essentially in love with the Doctor, and she confides in Dan about this because Dan is like, I can see that it's there, come on, have you know, and she sort of acknowledges she never told anybody about this before. And so it's a significant moment for Yaz. It's a great moment for the audience to see that sort of exploring the character in that way on screen. I think is really, really, really good to see in Doctor Who. And then obviously we have Dan kind of bumbling in and sort of blundering in and just going in and go telling the Doctor, oh, you know, Yaz is in love with you, basically, surely you must know, like, it's obvious. And it's really interesting to explore and sort of think about, I think, the Doctor's kind of understanding and perception of this that's kind of explored in various episodes, but I want to sort of focus mainly on Eve of the Daleks. Because, I don't know, my gut reaction is that the Doctor absolutely knew that was the case already and almost doesn't want to kind of acknowledge it and accept it. I mean, I know the big conversation has been, you know, does the Doctor also share these feelings towards Yaz? And I'm undecided on that fact. I think at the very least she has been aware for a while that Yaz has a very, very strong, you know, friendship with her, relationship with her. Whether this Doctor kind of, you know, sees it as love, I don't know. I mean, you know, it's not like the Doctor's stupid. She has a very much a concept of love and being in love with somebody and understands all of that. And even in this incarnation where she can be a bit more avoiding discussing feelings and emotions and stuff, she very much sort of kind of shies away from that generally and avoids that. But I do think that she's fully aware of the way that Yaz feels about her. And I think it's also notable that, from my perspective, based on Eve of the Daleks, the Doctor certainly thinks she is going to die soon. Obviously, that's what Time, the entity of time that was, you know, portrayed as Jodie Whittaker's Doctor in The Vanquishers, kind of said to her that your time is running out and all this, you know, harking back to the David Tennant days. But just the various kind of ominous looks that the Doctor gave across to Yaz during that episode, and at the start of the episode when they're in the TARDIS and it's about to blow or about to be reset, and she's like, we'll all die if we don't get out of here in time, and gives another ominous look. It sort of, I think, starts off in that episode more of her fear of dying. But then towards the end of the episode, it's more about, she knows how Yaz feels about her, and that's very much solidified. Even if she had an idea about it, it's now clear. But she also knows that she's going to die, or even it could just be the perspective that kind of, as we've struggled with before in Doctor Who, of the Doctor knows she will always live on. And so as much as Yaz loves her and whatever, you know, whatever relationship they may or may not have, could never last forever, because the Doctor will always carry on and Yaz, any human, won't. And so it's that kind of I don't know, maybe it's almost that feeling for the Doctor that she's kind of accidentally ended up in that situation again. She's obviously been, hurt and then faced the challenges back in David Tennant days of being the 10th Doctor and Rose and all of that. And I just wonder if that's kind of some of the feelings that this Doctor has about this whole situation that she's ended up in because of the deep relationship she has with Yaz. So as I say, I think the question is where we go next with this. We've obviously only got 2 episodes to explore it in any way. I do wonder whether... my perspective is that Chris probably always planned this in some way, but maybe he was planning to introduce it into Series 13 back when it was normal Series 13. It was more episodes of it, and it was more, what he planned it all to be. I do wonder if that was originally going to be sort of dropped into there at some point, but now it's kind of been forced into these specials, sort of being pushed back into that because there was too much going on with the Doctor Who Flux. And quite frankly, the Doctor and Yaz were split up and doing different things for so much of that series that, there almost wasn't as much opportunity to kind of, do that and explore that and open that conversation up. And so the fact it's happened so late, I know a lot of people have talked about the negativities of that. And I do think that to an extent it is a shame, because we know no matter what happens, it's all going to be wrapped up in 2 episodes' time, because there isn't any more episodes. And, Jodie's going. I'm 99.9% certain that Yaz is going, as much as I don't think she's explicitly stated it and has gone, I never know, I could come back. Like, it's not going to happen. Russell T Davies is definitely starting from a clean slate there. And so what can be explored? I mean, I imagine, clearly the key kind of conversation that's surely going to be had in the next episode, surely they're going to do it in Legend of the Sea Devils, is Yaz confessing to the Doctor her feelings. Like, she clearly was trying to do it at the end of Eve of the Daleks, but then the Doctor's like, oh no, I don't want to talk about feelings, no, let's move on to funny stuff, let's go to some funny planet, whatever. The Doctor's so averse to that I feel like she'd almost feel exceptionally uncomfortable in that, being put in that situation where Yaz is opening up her feelings to her. And you almost worry that the Doctor will respond in a sort of awkward way that we saw her doing with Graham back in Series 12 about his cancer, and just being like, I don't really know what to say right now, and saying nothing. Like, I hope, as much as that is a character trait of this Doctor, the sort of social awkwardness aspect, not really knowing how to deal with certain social situations, deal with emotions, deal with deep conversations and feelings, I kind of hope that isn't the way that they write it, that Chris chooses to write it, that it doesn't almost become a comedic thing, that she sidestepped this because that's just what she does, and kind of gets left hanging, because that would destroy Yaz as a character, and I just don't think is a satisfying conclusion for the audience. I'm not saying that we necessarily have to have the Doctor being in love with Yaz. I'm undecided as to whether the feelings are reciprocated or not. I really don't know. I think she, at the very, very least, the 13th Doctor, she has a very, very strong friendship with Yaz. And maybe she does almost have those stronger feelings, but almost doesn't really recognise it as being in love with her, possibly. I don't know. Maybe it's just a really strong kind of connection that she has towards Yaz. Obviously, Yaz has been there since, day one for the 13th Doctor, and I don't think we've really had a companion that stuck around for this long ever before. I know Clara was around for ages, and some of the classic companions, I guess Jo Grant was around for a while as well. But, there hasn't been that many companions that have stuck around as long as Yaz has. I think Yaz is going to be in every single episode of the 13th Doctor era, which has never happened before. And so, that's quite a significant thing. And it's not a surprise that they formed a very strong emotional bond, I think, through that long period of time. But whether it's going to ultimately be something that the Doctor reciprocates in, I think it's really hard to judge. I do sense that this relationship will, in some way, play into the end of the 13th Doctor. Whether it's a case of somehow the 13th Doctor sacrificing herself to save Yaz, or, I don't know, Yaz gets killed and, the Doctor goes on some ragey revenge rampage thing to try and defeat the Master, probably, or something like that. Like, it's perfectly set up now for the Master to kill Yaz for maximum emotional impact. Like, that's surely got to be some way we might be heading towards. And certainly they'll feel some jeopardy, I think, in that last episode. Not just for the Doctor, that we know is going to die in some form, but also for Yaz. Because I don't see, even if the Doctor regenerates, I don't see how Yaz would choose to leave the Doctor now by choice. I don't see, she's not going to do a Ryan and just go, I've had enough, I just want to go back to a normal life now. Yaz has got not a lot else. Like, the police job is nothing to her in comparison to travelling the universe with the Doctor. I don't think she's quite at the I want to be like the Doctor stage that Clara was, but she's very much, a solid companion, friends with the Doctor. This is her life. She doesn't want anything else. And I just don't see how that ends apart from her dying. Like, that sounds really bad, but I don't see where else that story can come to a conclusion. And so whether it's, the Doctor doing something in response to Yaz dying, or, she accidentally gets Yaz killed, I don't know, and that causes, and then she ends up regenerating off the back of it. There's lots of possibilities in there as to how that could play out, but I do think that the feelings, the relationship that the two of them have, will kind of be the emotional crux of that final episode and of the final confrontations, maybe with the Doctor and the Master, and maybe tie into how the regeneration plays out. Like, I'd be pretty sure that by the time we get to the point of Jodie regenerating, that Yaz is gone for whatever reason. Given that she's not carrying over, she surely can't be carrying over to the next era. You have to imagine the last 3 minutes of the centenary special, it'll be the same old Jodie Whittaker's Doctor on her own in the TARDIS about to regenerate. But how we get to that stage and what happens to Yaz by that point, I just don't think we can really know. It's very intriguing, various things we got around the time of that it seemed when they wrapped filming, it looked like the Doctor and Yaz were stood next to, there was a picture of them stood next to each other on the set, implying that they were at least filming together up until a very, very late stage. But, it could be that they weren't filming the last scenes on the last day. It could be that Mandip Gill was actually filming on a completely different set at the time, and they just came to the TARDIS to take the photo because that's what you do. It's the TARDIS. There's lots of other explanations for that, because I just don't see a scenario where Yaz is still in Doctor Who in the last 5 minutes of the centenary special, or with the Doctor, certainly. So yes, it's a fascinating situation. I think it's really great for Doctor Who to have this sort of representation. I think it's great to have this sort of Doctor-companion relationship to explore. I know some people get a bit down on the whole Doctor, companion romance relationship thing that we hadn't had explored at all in this era up until this point, and I understand that perspective. I know the Doctor's, meant to be above all of this and all that, but I don't think that at the moment there's any complete confirmation that the Doctor is reciprocating the feelings. It's almost just Yaz has fallen in love with the Doctor. And, I do think there'll be some sort of confession that there's something there very much in these last 2 episodes, probably in the final episode. But, whether it goes much further than that, I don't really know. And obviously there's not going to be the screen time to explore it that much more fully. I do just hope that it's not something that's kind of forgotten about in Legend of the Sea Devils and is left to that last one. Sure, I'm really excited for Sea Devils. That's probably my number one most excited thing for the Easter special. But I also think it's very, very important to continue to address the relationship between the Doctor and Yaz, and not just have a rompy episode with Sea Devils, but get stuck into, where are they at? Have that deep conversation. Yaz keeps talking about how the Doctor still, the Doctor still hasn't told her anything. She still hasn't explained anything about the timeless child, all the trauma she's been through over the last 2 series. Yaz knows it's there, but the Doctor just won't open up and explain it. And, Yaz is like, we're never going to get that opportunity on the beach for you to say, tell me everything. And it's surely at some point that conversation has got to happen, or maybe it never will, or it'll just start happening right at the end before they, one or both of them gets killed. But I do think it's a very fascinating dynamic that we've kind of settled in on, with the Doctor seemingly knowing she's going to die, and Yaz being in love with the Doctor. We don't quite know where the Doctor sits. Having only 2 episodes left, I'm very, very intrigued to see how this is expanded on and explored. I'm just hopeful that, that it does justice to the characters, and the feelings are shared in a good way, and that Chris, I know Chris has not always nailed everything with this era, there's no denying that, but I really just hope that this relationship and this connection that they have to each other is really explored well and developed well and reaches a good conclusion, and doesn't just feel like it's kind of cut short or kind of ignored and then picked up again or whatever. I just really hope that it's very naturally developed over these final 2 episodes, and obviously we don't have a clue, we'll just have to wait and see how they all play out. But yes guys, I would love to hear your thoughts and theories on how you think the Doctor and Yaz's relationship over these final 2 episodes is going to play out. What would you like to see from it? How, have you got any theories on how they might leave the show? How, how Yaz might leave the show in the last episode, and how that just their final moments might play out. I'd love to hear any theories you've got on how that plays out, because I'm not 100% sure. I'm really not sure. Like, I've got ideas, but I just don't really know, and it's great. But yeah, guys, that's just about it from this video. Please hit that like button and that subscribe button, of course, if you're new here. But apart from that, I'll be back again very soon for a brand new video. But until then, it's goodbye.